Welcome, tireless voyagers of star-crossed tales. Welcome back to the sanctuary where the spotlight turns into confession and glitter becomes meaning. You are on Turkish series Stars. Tonight I invite you to steady your breath and soften your heart, because our path crosses two cities whose names alone can turn midnight into noon, Riyadh and Milan, where one evening unfolded like a whisper that shook the globe. Prepare for a story about presences that dazzle, absences that thunder, and a bond that has learned to walk the tightrope between devotion and destiny. Before we step through the doors of palaces and backstage corridors, don't forget the gestures that make us family. Subscribe to Turkish series Stars, tap the bell so you hear the secrets others hide, and if our way of reading between the lines of celebrity life resonates with you, leave a like. For those who want front-row access to every reveal, the join button is your velvet rope. The night is long, and our truths are many. Riyadh seemed to hum even before the cameras warmed, as if the carpets themselves could feel the voltage in the air. The perfume of expectation mingled with the brightness of chandeliers, and then there she was, Demet Özdemir. She stepped into the frame with that signature poise. Light in her eyes, a geometry of confidence in her posture, a hush that fell because everyone suddenly remembered how to listen. Yet the buzz that crawled along the carpet didn't attach itself to the shimmer of her gown or the precision of her styling. The headline behind every murmur was the absence walking just beyond her shadow. She moved alone. No familiar hand at her elbow, no silhouette that kept pace with those measured steps. No Kenyaman to complete the picture eager minds had drafted in advance. It took less than a breath for the whispering to sharpen into something hungrier. Why was Demet alone at an event that rang with global resonance? The question hopped oceans in seconds, riding from one glowing phone screen to another, blooming into threads and comments that read like breaking news bulletins. She knew the weight of that particular stage, the way the Gulf spotlight can magnify the smallest glance, and she responded with a serenity so intact it felt like velvet. She greeted journalists with warmth, posed with the calm certainty of a woman who understands the camera is a language she speaks fluently, and gave nothing away that could be twisted into a headline. No flustered chuckles, no faltering phrases. Just elegance, just intent, just a focus sharpened to a diamond's edge. Of course, restraint can be gasoline when speculation is the match. Was the physical distance a coded statement? A warning written in soft ink? Or the first visible crack in a story many had been writing for them? Those who feast on the tremble of other people's narratives zoomed into every blink of Demet's lashes, the tilt of her chin, the seconds she stood without a partner at her side, hoping to find a wobble. But the truth, that stubborn companion to real life, whispered a simpler explanation. Triumph had divided their coordinates, and the calendar, cold ruler of every famous life, refused to bend. Let's pause, dear friends of Turkish series Stars, and step back from the neon of gossip. Why does the collective eye struggle with the idea that a woman can occupy a world stage alone without her independence being confused for loneliness? How much of our expectation is still written by an old script that insists a woman's brilliance needs a second silhouette to approve it? Tell me below what you think, because this speaks to more than a single evening, more than a single couple. It touches the nerves of what we believe about success and love. And if these reflections feel like the conversation you've been craving, becoming a member keeps this dialogue alive. Just as the theories ballooned into apocalyptic predictions about a romance supposedly bending under pressure, another stream of images began to flow, cool, clear water washing over a fevered story. In Italy, amid speeds of scooters and the rumble of history, Kenyaman moved through the streets of Milan with the relaxed magnetism of a man used to being watched. His presence at Fashion Week wasn't an impulse, it was inked into his diary months ago, confirmed before any online rumor was even born. His itinerary was a gauntlet of commitments, front-row seats at shows that decide what the world wears next season, private gatherings tucked behind velvet ropes, strategic conversations with brands whose signatures glow on skyscrapers. There was no space for a miracle flight to Riyadh, no way to bend kilometers to his will. Two continents do not forgive wishful thinking. The reasonable among us nodded, closed the tab, and moved on. But reason has never sold as many clicks as chaos. What the whispers didn't account for was the invisible bridge these two have learned to build when distance insists on a headline. They threaded their day with calls and messages, a video chat before the flash storm to lace nerves with courage, a note across the time zones to say I'm here, and another after the applause to say I saw it all and I'm proud. Picture Demet in the hush of a green room, the glow of a screen lighting her smile as she listens to a familiar voice offering steadiness like a hand at the small of her back. Imagine Ken between shows, ducking out of the roar to send a line that carried enough tenderness to feel like a presence. The public sees the sparkles, it rarely sees the sacrifices. Flights into nowhere hours, rooms that feel too large without the right footsteps in them, the resolve to remember that love survives in the spaces between minutes and miles. After the ceremony, Demet spoke briefly. Her composure did not crack. She called the opportunity to stand in such an international spotlight priceless, thanked the organizers and the audience for the generosity that seemed to surround her like a warm cloak, and when asked about Cannes and Milan, she answered mostly with a smile. It wasn't a shield, it was a key to warmth, not evasion. In a world addicted to puzzles, sometimes the answer is simply trust. Meanwhile, on the other side of a sea and a little sliver of geography, Milan was taking notes. Fashion editors scribbled details not just about fabric and silhouette but about the energy of a man who understands that what you wear is a sentence in the language of self. Ken didn't need to shout for attention, the room came to him anyway. He mixed old-school charisma with modern precision, and the comments online poured in. Some wished Demet could have shared that row with him, could have been captured in the same frame under the hushed glow of front-row lights. Others applauded the symmetry of it. While she held a capital in thrall, he lit another, and somewhere in the middle their names met and sparked. Back in Riyadh, those rare, quiet frames of Demet without an escort didn't predict doom. They reflected how bright her star burns when it's given oxygen and room. The regional press didn't see vacancy, they saw command. They wrote about her as an international presence, a woman who can glide along a carpet alone and have the room lean in. And across the map, Ken was building his own paragraph in their joint story, no longer only the actor with a killer frame for the camera, but a brand in motion, a figure who can sit beneath a global logo and not vanish under it. This is what power couples look like now, two vectors rising, sometimes parallel, sometimes on separate runways, always carried by the same gravity toward the same center. And the fans? They did what they do best, wove a bridge from one highlight reel to another. As Demet's clips trended in the Middle East, Cannes' appearances lit up Italian timelines, and over the Mediterranean a commentary chorus connected the dots. The usual wolves tried their oldest bait, alone, crisis, troubled waters, but the sharpest eyes didn't bite. Because when you choose work over noise and dignity over spectacle, your silence stops being empty and starts being a statement. They didn't race to clap back. They didn't chase the echo. They simply kept going. What comes next? If the whispers sneaking out of the corridors are to be believed, once the last light at Fashion Week fizzles and the doors click shut behind the final show, Ken intends to disappear for a breath, just a breath, onto a quiet path with Demet. Destination whispered, itinerary folded into a pocket, goal obvious, time, the kind that mends the strain of schedules and puts daylight back into rooms. There's talk of both of them stepping away from the frenzy, declining the world for a sliver of privacy, letting the chase swarm elsewhere for a while. Not a goodbye to the stage, just a reminder that love is a room they can always return to. So let's call this by its real name. Not a fracture, not an implosion, but a progression, two people who have learned to be fluent in dual dialects. The language of flashing bulbs and the hush of home, of yes to legacy moments and no to performing every minute of affection for strangers. They understand that fame demands receipts, but real connection keeps its own ledger. And now, before we dim our lights and hand the night back to your dreams, I turn to you, the heartbeat of Turkish series stars. If this journey through the hush and thunder of the last few days stirred something in you, show it with a like. Subscribe so you never miss the next late-night map we draw across the heavens of celebrity. If you crave the front row, the early whisper, the room where the doors close and the talk gets real, consider joining as a member. We will keep reading between the frames, translating the pauses, finding the sentences written in silence. Remember this as you set your phones down. Sometimes the strongest love is the kind that wears distance like a borrowed coat. Temporary, a little uncomfortable, but proof of where you've been and where you're going. Tonight the world tried to make a headline out of a gap. Demet Özdemir and Can Yaman turned it into a corridor, one they walked from opposite ends, meeting in the middle with the certainty that the cameras never get to keep. This is Turkish series stars. Good night.